We're talking about the Connecticut 1662 Royal Charter, which embodied the principles of self-government that had been practiced by the colonists in Connecticut. And it was formally issued by the King Charles II and allowed them to continue self-governing as they had been for decades already.
There's a lot of precedent that's being set up in this document in 1662. It was originally on display at the state capitol, and when the State Library building was built in 1910, they designed the hall to house the charter vault. And the charter has pretty much been on display in this vault since 1910. So it was very important for us to not only have the document conserved, but to also be analyzing the conditions of its environment and thinking about the exposure to light over time. So we're really delighted to have a facsimile of the charter because it means that we'll be able to keep the charter tucked away in a safe place so that it can be preserved for future generations. It's lasted for almost 400 years. We certainly want it to last another 400. But people are used to being able to see the charter. They're used to, in the history of the Museum of Connecticut History, there has always been a charter hanging in the charter vault in the frame made out of the charter oak. So by having the facsimile, we're able to continue that practice while still maintaining the safety of the original charter.
So we ended up taking this very minimal treatment approach for the piece where I removed the other historic conservation repairs and kind of made slightly more discrete repairs that were underneath the object rather than on top, and then just checked some of the attachments of the textile overall. And I removed this very large paper patch that was at the upper edge, and it was kind of overriding the inherent nature of the skin, but it also didn't really provide a clean and solid background for me to put my fills into place, and was also kind of like a slight color shift to the skin, which was going to interfere with some of the facsimile color matching overall. So while the treatment that I ended up doing was really, really minimal, it did a really good job of preserving the piece and then making this nice solid foundation for the object to then be tension mounted using perimeter hinges wrapping around the board and being put in a frame. So the original is now in an aluminum frame in a case. So it is really, really safe, really, really secure. The tension on it is much more even than it was previously. It's not being pressed directly up against the plexi. So it has room to move and room to breathe and kind of to react in the way that it should as a historic object instead of being restricted by all of these other secondary materials.
So this is a very large object, and it required at least 12 to 14 images, separate, distinct, overlapping images, and then those images were then stitched together for the final shot. The reason behind this type of approach is that even with a really great equipment that we have, we still require very high resolution, and we had the camera has to be close in to get those really good quality shots. After the photography, the images are stitched together, and then we check for in quality control to make sure that down to the pixel level that those stitches are perfect. And there was some kind of a little bit of concern because it had some three-dimensional quality to the object. We had to make sure that, focus was as perfect as we could get. Mm-hmm. And, in the end, it proved to be successful. And even though it was one document, when it came time to print, it was more like 3 images in one because there was the text itself and the material that was written on. The portrait of King Charles was very different. It acted very differently to our lighting, and also the very intense red colors that we used. Mm-hmm. It meant that we had to make layer adjustments for all of these separate little components, and in the end, pass off some prints for Katie to look at to double check our color balance and make sure everything was pretty much suitable for wherever the print was going to be displayed. The other big element that I was concerned with was the stain reduction. in the final product. So we were also fortunate to have a transcript of the document because some of the stains obscured text that was not visible with normal light. Mm-hmm. And in the end, it proved to be successful.
Any DCC's creation of kind of the original format of the charter, I think, will be really useful to help kids understand the size, the feel of the document. They look at the charter the way it's presented, and it's 3 pieces kind of all glued together into one giant document. And their first question is, how is that going to fit in a tree? Right? So if you have something that's more of the original size of the document, which was in 3 pieces, may have been rolled, suddenly it clicks and it will become more clear. Oh, that's how they were able to pass it out the window, or whatever they're kind of trying to suss out through the legend. So one of the things we're looking forward to is the 250th anniversary of the United States. And one of the things we'll be looking at is how Connecticut played a role in the founding of our country. And so looking at our founding documents really helps us understand Connecticut in that early period and how they kind of influenced. For instance, Connecticut is called the Constitution State, and that's because of the Fundamental Orders of 1639. So it's considered one of the first written constitutions, and we know that that had a direct tie to the Charter of 1662. So really the possibilities of kind of investigating and interpreting the history of Connecticut's founding and its influence on concurrent events in American history is really limitless. And so we're just getting started.